death, order, time, creativity, chaos. These are some of the most important concepts and forces that sculpt reality itself. As we mortals trek through the quest of life, these forces act upon all of us, but who oversees the forces themselves? When I die, who's gonna watch over me? When time is out of whack, who's gonna come and fix it? And when order is challenged, whose spear slays the unjust? Well, in real life, I have absolutely no idea, but on Magic the Gathering's plane of Theros, I know that the gods rule over these primal forces and concepts. Their power comes from the direct worship of them, so the more followers they have, the stronger they are. Kinda like with YouTube.
Bigger number, better person. I'm still making money off of it.
Each of these 15 gods has true domination, living up in the great sky realm of Nyx. The gods oversee the mortals and the entire plane itself, but who actually are they? What do they rule over? And how many gods have already fallen? My goal today with you is to break down every god in the Greco-Roman myth-inspired plane of Theros, going over their mana color or colors, what they have dominion over, and any other key details that get me feeling a little bit extra spicy, if you know what I mean. Or, as they say in my homeland of Germany, muy caliente, starting with the 5 single mana type gods.
Erebos!
Big man Erebos is the black mana-aligned god of death. He rules over the underworld, representing the cold, harsh inevitability that pretty much everyone fears. Everyone has to die eventually, and Erebos shall reap judgment. As Theros is a Greco-Roman mythologically inspired plane, a lot of the key gods actually have some pretty direct parallels. In Erebos' case, he's basically the Hades of Theros, ruling over a massive shadowy underworld filled with rivers of the dead, towering judges, wandering spirits. You kind of catch the drift, right? But his name actually comes from the primordial titan of darkness, Erebus. Now, this naming convention is a little bit of a trend among a lot of the Theran gods, it turns out. A lot of them seem to be named after titans despite having godly parallels. And the comparison to bossman Hades goes deeper than just the weird spooky vibes, because just like Hades, Erebos isn't really evil, he's just kind of the god stuck handling the grim reality that no one really else wants to talk about. Wielding the mighty whip of Erebos, Mastix, he's essentially a big cattle rancher, but the cattle are souls, and with the whip, they get lifelink. Hey, Erebos takes death very seriously. To him, mortality is a part of the natural order, which is why he absolutely loses his mind over Elspeth Tyrell trying to escape his underworld after being killed by none other than Heliod. We'll get to him. Erebos is a complicated man though, and he's not without reason. Arguably actually more than Heliod, his true rival, Erebos has sympathy, honor, and tends to be emotionally grounded. He will bargain and barter, showing that even the gods have their own desires, which is very present in his card, as he allows you to trade your own life for more card draw. And his power of death is actually best represented by his card's ability to prevent your opponents from gaining any life, something that opposes, of course, Heliod's ability to gain you life. Speaking of which,
Heliod!
At first glance, Heliod looks like the classic righteous sun god of Theros because he is. He is the white-aligned god of the sun, order, kingship, and divine authority, wielding the legendary spear cursor like some unstoppable holy ruler descending from the heavens. Basically, if you just walked into Theros completely blind, you'd immediately assume, oh, okay, that's gotta be the good guy. His namesake and his indirect parallel is Helios, the Greek titan of the sun, but he's also of course rocking a little bit of that good old Zeus parallel as well. And that's because across pretty much all planes of Magic the Gathering and all the many gods, Heliod is, in my opinion, the most fascinatingly toxic god in the entire series. Pretty much like Zeus from original Greek mythology, Heliod is obsessed with being worshipped, obeyed, and seen as the top supreme divine guy up there. You can actually even see this in his card ability from his Theros block card, which allows him to create a cleric. In other words, he creates more worshippers who then have, of course, to revere him. This then also ties really interestingly in his rivalry with Erebos, because he is the shining king in the heavens, constantly looking down on the darker underworld gods. Now that's a more modern media take on Greek mythology if I've ever seen one. In some true interpretations, Zeus and Hades were actually a lot more chill, but Heliod and Erebos are absolutely not. Heliod's got an era bone to pick with his brother. But it turns out that Heliod's biggest flaw is just his uber big insecurity. He's kind of like me in grade 8, just absolutely mortified when a cute girl walks by. Since the Gods of Theros literally gain power from mortal belief, Heliod becomes terrified when Elspeth Tyrell starts becoming too beloved by the people, as I said, just like me. But unlike me, Heliod is a real freak. Instead of celebrating her heroism, Heliod just murders her out of jealousy because homegirl here was way more popular than him. Turns out that she killed the Hydra Polokrunos, I learned that one in my Elspeth video here. Ironically, that insecurity of his is also what eventually destroys him. During the set lore for Theros Beyond Death, Elspeth actually escapes the underworld, returns stronger than ever, and kills Heliod with his own weapon, now Shadow Spear, one of my favorite magic cards, meaning that Big Heliod is one of a few fallen gods, eventually then returning in completed form during the March of the Machine block as a corrupted Phyrexian god who was then once again slain.
Thassa.
My girl Thassa is the blue-aligned god of the sea, exploration, mystery, and the pursuit of knowledge through discovery in Theros. And she's completing our parallels to the Greek Big Three, standing in for Poseidon, or Neptune if you swing that way I guess. However, her name, like Heliod, is actually inspired by another titan, the primordial ruler of the seas, Thalassa. Which, by the way, if you're wondering, is where the name thalassophobia comes from, the fear of the ocean. Which I think I have after having watched too many sea monster movies when I was a little kid. I don't know, like open black water with no bottom inside kind of freaks me out a little bit. Anyways, Thassa rocks the ocean vibe because she's a little bit quirky. And by that, I mean that sometimes she's calm and chill, scenic and serene, and then she suddenly just decides to ruin your entire life the next moment like a tidal wave. She wields the magical bident, not a trident, but a bident too, Dakella, and she uses it to dominate the oceans, tides, the occasional storm, and most importantly, the terrifying things hiding beneath the waves. And since she's blue, she loves curiosity and exploration, rewarding sailors, navigators, and philosophers who seek out the unknown. This can be seen in her ability to scry 1 at the beginning of your upkeep, so this card actually rewards you with more knowledge. Oh, okay, I see, thanks. Someone appreciates my curiosity, and since she loves knowledge and growth, she inherently hates arrogance. If someone thinks that they've mastered the sea, Thassa will absolutely humble them with a hurricane, a sea monster, a tsunami, or, if you're very unlucky, D, all of the above. Which, kind of makes sense because Thassa isn't just about oceans, she's about the idea that there will always be something deeper out there waiting to be discovered, something left unknown. Because seeking knowledge in the sea of information is no different than sailing the bright blue oceans.
Nylea.
The baddie with the bow, herself, the huntress, Nylea, is the green-aligned god of the hunt, primal instinct, and untamed wilderness in Theros. Her name, since I've been going over it, stems from the Greek word Nyle, which means to flow or to run, but for all intents and purposes, she is the Artemis of Theros, representing a very important aspect of the plane. Nature is not peaceful. Nature is ancient and savage and really doesn't care if you survive. The beasts, the natural order, that's really all that matters. Which is exactly why her first card, Nylea, God of the Hunt, has abilities that grant trample and buff creatures. She bolsters the beasts at her side. Meanwhile, Nylea Keen-Eyed reduces creature cost and let you add creatures to your hand. She's really all about bringing out the beasties to hunt with her. Because turns out in the lore of the plane, that's exactly what she does. Armed with her divine bow Aphyxis, Nylea stalks the forests and wilds of Theros alongside massive beasts, badass hydras, and some other monsters for good measure as well. Her followers include hunters, rangers, beastmasters, and creatures of the deep wilderness, those who worship the concept of survival and natural selection. Very Darwinian of her. Now, as the master of nature, she's deeply protective of Theros itself because when Xenagos, we'll get to him, ascended into godhood and started destabilizing the entire plane, Nylea was ready to imprison him because his reckless chaos threatened the natural balance of the world. So she's not evil, she's just the living embodiment of nature's wrath. The wilderness was here long before humanity after all, and will probably still be here long after it too. At least on Theros, maybe or maybe not so much in the real world.
Purphoros!
The Forge Master himself is here. Purphoros is the very well-known red mana-aligned god of the Forge, but he also oversees fire, invention, creativity, and an unyielding artistic obsession within Theros. Fire, after all, is passion. He has that fire of innovation and actual flames. The Greeks were really artsy after all, and apparently so are the Therosians. He is the Hephaestus of Theros, and his name comes from the word pur for fire, pyro, pyromaniac, right? And phoros, the bringer. Thus, he is the Firebringer. But honestly, calling him the blacksmith god almost kind of undersells him because Purphoros isn't just about making weapons, though he's really good at that, having created the Sword of Chaos, a blade capable of injuring the divine. For all intents and purposes, he is the divine embodiment of that uncontrollable urge to create something, whether that ends in success or absolute disaster. Doesn't really matter here. That's why his God of the Forge card abilities grant additional power, but he also just deals raw damage, as you probably have experienced if you ever have played Commander at all. He creates and destroys all in one swing of the hammer. Oh yeah, did I mention that he has a gigantic hammer? It's called Akmon. Purphoros uses it to forge legendary weapons, artifacts, constructs, and impossible creations deep within the volcanic furnace of Mount Vallis. Turns out he's also a big lover boy, having a deep love for Nylea, which inspired his best art. I feel you, man. I feel you. I too created my best art in a tragic pursuit of love. But we don't speak about that. Unfortunately for him, he's also incredibly emotional and, as a result, kind of unstable. Even compared to the rest of the gods, Purphoros is explosive, impulsive, and absolutely unpredictable. One second he's inspired and creating wonders, the next he's leveling mountains in frustration because a project didn't come out the way that he wanted it to. Though, again, he did create a lot of really cool things, like the Manticore, whom I just learned apparently have hearts formed from hatred itself. Ain't that something? Alright, so those are all of the solo mana gods. Now it's time to talk about the multi-mana gods, which get really weird and really interesting, starting with the oldest of them all,
Kruphix!
Kruphix is the green-blue god of horizons and time. And out of all the gods on Theros, this dude feels the least like a traditional deity and the most like some ancient cosmic entity accidentally observing reality, since he just is. He's also the god of hidden secrets and mystery, which is where his name actually comes from, the Greek word kryptos, which means hidden or mystery. But seriously, out of all the Theros gods, Kruphix has the most Lovecraftian energy. He's made of stars. He is dark truths and forbidden knowledge, a cosmic being beyond comprehension, and the eldest of the gods of Theros. He bends the rules of knowledge on Theros, and that's why his card allows you to have no maximum hand size and allows you to stockpile mana by converting it to colorless mana that he just holds onto. He has no boundaries. He is the horizon, and his ability allows you to store mana over time, which is an incredibly useful and rare power. And unlike the other gods who really obsess over worship, kingdoms, war, emotion, Kruphix operates on an entirely different level. For example, he's the only god of Theros to have known about planeswalkers prior to the events of the Theros set. That's an insane thing to just know about. He, of all the gods, was like, oh yeah, there's a multiverse out there and these guys show up and explore it. They're like more godly than we are in many ways. The gods of Theros are shaped by mortal belief, meaning that their histories and identities can shift over time, but Kruphix retains knowledge that the others just lose or ignore. He alone remembers truths from before the current age of Theros and will remember all going forward.
Klothys!
Klothys is the other oldest god tied with Kruphix, and she's the red-green god of destiny, fate, and the abstract concept of reality in Theros. She's named after Clotho, one of the three Moirai, the three fates who oversee destiny in Greek mythology. Now, unlike Heliod's authoritarian order, Klothys represents cosmic balance, the idea that reality has a pattern and everything has a place within it. Hence her oddly specific ability to exile cards, convert land to mana, or heal and damage others if it was a non-land, playing into that green is life, red is pain mana that she's got going on. She returns land to mana, the natural order, or uses life itself to heal and harm as is the way of reality, or I don't know, something like that. She's also the one who imprisoned the terrifying titans beneath the world before vanishing for centuries. She basically did her job real good and then was like their jailer for a very long time until Theros Beyond Death, when she kicked into action to bring order amidst chaos. Xenagos ascending into godhood wasn't rebellious or clever, it was a violation of destiny itself. And then when the souls began escaping the underworld after Elspeth escaped the underworld too, Klothys led her agents of fate to hunt them down, and I gotta say, I kinda respect the hustle.
Karametra!
Karametra is the green-white god of harvests, family, agriculture, and communities living alongside nature in Theros. She also happens to sit on a massive wooden throne that I originally thought was a big faceless figure with a hood on, but no. It's her in a chair. Kara here is inspired heavily by Demeter and Hestia, goddesses of agriculture and the hearth. Karametra represents the idea that civilization and nature do not have to be enemies, which is why farms, villages, families, and shared traditions all fall under her protection. It's also why her card ability lets you bring forests and plains onto the battlefield if you summon a creature. The creatures arrive and tend to the land, a flourishing coexistence. You get it. She's the common folks goddess, and during massive divine conflicts, like the clash with Xenagos or Phyrexia's invasion, Karametra was actually one of the very few gods who were willing to shelter and protect the mortals. And while most of Theros' gods usually are busy starting wars, cursing the mortals, or having existential breakdowns, Karametra is basically the divine embodiment of please just eat dinner and take care of each other. She's all about family, right? Put Dominic Toretto here or something, I don't know.
Athreos!
Athreos is the white-black god of passage, transition, and guiding souls into death on Theros. His name comes from Athreos, the Greek word for gathering or amasser, right? Which, kind of explains his role as the hoarder of the dead. He's basically Theros' version of Charon, the ferryman of the dead, quietly rowing souls, across the river of the underworld. You can even see this in his design as he's wading through this big spooky acid pool here, carrying a big stick to row a boat, but instead of a boat, he's a big guy who probably carries everyone on his shoulders, I guess. But also you can see it in his card's abilities. The original Athreos God of Passage returns creatures to your hand unless a life toll is paid by your opponent, referencing the coin toll paid to Charon to guide a soul across the river Styx. Which is actually doubled down on in the card Athreos Shroud Veiled, who puts coin counters on cards to bring them back when they die. He's also just freaky as hell. He isn't loud, prideful, or emotional. He's calm, eerie, almost unsettlingly patient, playing into the opposing ideals of his mana colors. Death to Athreos isn't cruel or glorious, it's just part of the natural order, a simple transition everyone must eventually take.
Ephara!
Ephara is the white-blue god of civilization, philosophy, law, and structured society in Theros. She's heavily inspired by Athena, acting as the patron goddess of cities, governance, architecture, and just intellectual culture. Much like how Athena cosmically governed over the great city of Athens and me on a Tuesday night, she is the god of the polis, not the police, the polis, the word for city in ancient Greek. By the way, I'm just gonna drop it here because I kind of want to share it and I don't know where to put it. I had to study ancient Greek in school for 5 years, and so making this video is a real blast and kind of like scratching at my old Greek knowledge as well. Anyways, to Ephara, civilization is humanity's greatest achievement. Laws, philosophy, education, art, city planning, all the things that separate people from simply surviving in the wilderness, basically. And naturally, this also means that she constantly clashes ideologically with Nylea, who sees civilization as artificial corruption. Her card abilities are also very interesting in this regard because they are about humanity bringing each other up. God of the Polis lets you draw a card if you had a creature enter the battlefield last turn. Meanwhile, with Ephara ever sheltering, you draw a card for enchantments that enter the battlefield. These abilities and her entire vibe are centered around the belief that humanity becomes strongest not through brute force, but through knowledge, structure, and cooperation.
Erebos!
This guy is half man, half bull, but not in the usual Minotaur way since he's got kind of the centaur configuration going on. Regardless though, Iroas is a beast. He runs it up as the red-white god of victory, courage, and honorable warfare in Theros. He's got the role and status of not 1, not 2, not even 4, but 3 gods in Greek mythology. He's got a bit of a splash of Athena, a dab of Nike, goddess of victory, and a heaping helping of the teacher of heroes, Chiron. He represents battle at its peak. We're talking brave heroes defending others, soldiers standing their ground in the face of death, and warriors earning glory through honor rather than deceit and cruelty. And this manifests in his card abilities as well. He gives creatures menace, which forces the opponents to declare multiple blockers to stop their attacks as he rallies his brave warriors and makes them so powerful that no single beast could stop them. He also grants all your creatures a secondary, arguably more important ability. They don't take damage as long as they're attacking, which means that they can draw aggro, opening the path for your biggest, stronger heroes to destroy their enemies. Now, as you can imagine, Iroas is worshipped heavily by soldiers, champions, and heroic figures across Theros, and unlike many gods, Iroas actually values restraint and discipline, which is pretty crucial considering that his twin brother is Mogis, the literal god of slaughter. The two basically represent the eternal divide between war fought with purpose and violence just for violence sake, and literally throw hands in the cosmos on the regular. Speaking of which,
Mogis.
mess with the bull, get the dang horns. The Minotaur god Mogis is also the black-red god of slaughter, bloodshed, and brutality in Theros. And he's all about pain, trouble, and making it double. Hence his name comes from the ancient Greek word Mogos, which means pain, trouble, or distress. And while his twin Iroas is actually representing honor and glory, Mogis represents war at its absolute worst. Rage, carnage, suffering, the kind of metal side of it. He's worshipped by raiders, berserkers, murderers, and most notably, the Minotaurs, who don't care about justice or heroism. They simply want to cut you down. Which plays incredibly well into his card effect, which lets him rip into your opponent with his axe for 2 damage, unless your enemy sacrifices a creature to his slaughter. Because after all, Mogis doesn't want victory, he just wants blood. And he also wants you to use the hype feature of this video if you're watching on mobile. I found that it's incredibly useful and helpful. So if you wanna, get more magic content, help out the channel and, let me know that you like what you see, swipe over on the little like button and use your free hype for this video. Thank you very much.
Keranos.
The storm god cometh, and I'll be honest with you, Keranos is a little bit of an oddball. But the reason is actually pretty cool. He's not just the storm guy, he's the brainstorm guy, named after the word Keranos, the ancient Greek word for thunderbolt. Keranos is the blue-red god of storms. Yes, also because is it storm, right? Get it? But also inspiration, revelation, and sudden insight. A regular Zeus meets the oracles here, as he represents those key moments where an idea hits your brain like an actual lightning bolt, and then you go, Eureka! And everyone thinks you're crazy because you are. Anyways, Keranos is deeply intellectual, but also wildly unpredictable. One thing that's clear though is that he respects purpose. If you come to him with a goal and an idea, he'll show you the future. Momentary glances at what awaits, but in a double-edged sword, or I guess double-edged lightning bolt kind of way, you will be unable to change the future that he shows you. Win or lose, Keranos doesn't really care, he's just happy you're committing to it. This actually explains his card effects of allowing you to reveal the first card that you draw and deal damage to your opponent depending on what you draw. It's a monetary glimpse into the future and a little shock and awe as well.
Phenax.
Phenax is the blue and black god of deception, manipulation, and hidden truths in Theros. Fittingly, he wasn't even originally a god, meaning he's a lie to the people, but I'll get to that in just a second. He's based on a couple of deities, including Hermes, the god of thieves and travelers, but also Doulos, son of Erebos, who is the main man of trickery. His name comes from the word Phenax, meaning to cheat or to be an imposter, and essentially he's the total opposite of Phoenix here, who is all about truth and justice. Phenax started as a mortal who somehow managed to ascend into divinity only after being the first man to ever escape the underworld. Oh, you're a naughty, naughty boy, but I do respect the entire I escaped a god, then became one to spite him even harder type of vibe. We do love ourselves a little bit of godly irony on this channel. Now, Phenax also has a very unique tie to one of the greatest threats Theros has ever dealt with, Ashiok. Since he's one of the only gods who truly grasps manipulation at its core, he struck a deal with the fierce sculptor Ashiok and made them invisible to all of the gods of the plane. That's why Ashiok's torment of the entire plane worked out so well. It was all thanks to his trickster god here wanting to mess with the other divine. I've got a whole video just on Ashiok. If you're curious and want to learn about all of that eventually, you can check that out later. Anyway, this kind of explains his card ability that makes your opponents discard cards off the top of the deck. He's actively messing with fate and mocking death by sending cards into the underworld mechanically, ironically the place that he escaped from. It's no wonder then that Phenax is associated with spies, assassins, cults, thieves, and all that fun jazz, especially when you consider his design is themed around the Returned, a subset of undead in the underworld that he led out of the underworld to begin with. His greatest followers worshipped him in death and life after death while still being dead, but he matches them wearing the iconic gold armor and masks of the Returned even in Divinity.
Pharika.
Next up, we've got the silly snake goddess Pharika. She rules as the black and green god of medicine, poison, affliction, and alchemy in Theros, which I love because it's kind of got a little bit of that Witherbloom vibe from Strixhaven, right? Where at their core, poison and healing are two sides of the same coin. Clearly, she's very much rocking that Medusa vibe, being a Gorgon and all, but she's also based on like a bunch of different gods: Circe, Asclepius, and Telesphorus with the snake medicine tie-in, Panacea, tons of stuff here with her and the medical gods, right? Her name, though, seems to come from the word pharmakon, the ancient Greek word that ties to curative drugs and poisons, and a root for the word pharmacy. She's got the most obvious tie into her card effect too, creating snake tokens with Death Touch, capable of instantly destroying enemies that they attack with their poisons, toxins, venom, or whatever you want it to be. Now, something that I actually find truly fascinating here is that to Pharika, venom isn't inherently evil and medicine isn't inherently good. Both are simply tools of transformation, and that duality defines everything about her. She's a fine balance between life and death in its most natural and pure way. So, that's it then, right? The Gods of Theros, well, not exactly. There is a name, of course, that's been popping up a bunch, and while I don't want to get too crazy giga in-depth on him right now, because he absolutely will just get his own video at some point, there is just no way I could make this video without leaving out
Xenagos.
This wicked satyr planeswalker was the red-green god of revelry, excess, madness, and chaotic freedom in Theros, but calling him just another god completely misses why he's one of the most important characters in all of Theros' lore. And quickly, just so we all know, his name comes from the words Xenos and Agus, which means stranger and curse, respectively. Because Xenagos wasn't born divine, and in fact, outside of Phenax, he's one of the few to discover the Theros' god secret, that worship is the source of their entire existence and power. He realized he could become a god if he just gained enough of a following. So, through manipulation, celebration, cult-like worship, and absolute chaos, Xenagos convinced enough of Theros to believe in him that he literally ascended into godhood into Nyx. It completely shattered the assumptions of the pantheon and terrified the other gods because suddenly divinity no longer seemed sacred or permanent. Instead, it just destabilized everything, eventually leading to the fall of Heliod. And very fittingly, Xenagos of course has huge Pan and Dionysus energy, who were the gods of satyrs, chaos, parties, good times, and selfishness. That's what they're all about. Now, explaining his god card effect, God of Revels grants haste and doubles the power of creature until the end of turn. He is just chaos incarnate, inviting more battles, more frantic decisions, and a lot of extra nonsense due to his presence on the board. But while Xenagos ascended to becoming a god, there is actually one god in Theros we have seen be born from nothing. They're all crazy ancient deities, but during the set blocks, we actually saw one form.
Cacophony.
Cacophony, in all honesty, is the most tragic god in all of Theros' lore, at least to me personally. Unlike all the other gods, this thing wasn't born from worship and faith. Instead, it was the product of Ashiok meddling with the dreams and fears of the Therosians. Cacophony was created from collective nightmares. It embodies dissonance, a dark city made whole basically, hence the name Cacophony, a word that means a harsh, discordant, and unpleasant mixture of sounds that don't fit together. Thematically, it can also be used to describe loud, chaotic, and clashing elements. And the reason I say it's tragic is because the dark sadness at its core is that it was essentially a divine infant. It literally could not understand humanity beyond violence and suffering. It had no idea what was happening or why it was hated so much, and was scared itself right up to the moment it was unmade by Ephara. And that's why it doesn't have a god card. Cacophony simply is present in the enchantment Cacophony Unleashed, where the card briefly becomes a legendary 6/6 nightmare god with menace and death touch until end of turn. It literally highlights this small fragment of time where the god came into being and then also vanished immediately. And if you want to know what actually happened after our poor boy's death here and how he was manufactured by the Fear Master themselves, check out this video where I cover its creator, Ashiok, one of the most terrifying and mysterious beings in Magic, and the wicked, frightening tale that they weave throughout the multiverse. Otherwise, thanks for watching. If you enjoy a video like this, breaking down like a hierarchy or like a group in a plane, let me know. I would love to do more of these, and I will see you in the next one. I wonder what it could possibly be.